The hero with the serious and centered who held the sword is named Noah. This story is breathtaking. It is not about the adventures of heroes, but about a young boy and his sisters. In the castle, where there is no passage for strangers and which was far away from all eyes, was Noah. He was standing on the training field, inside the castle, holding a sword. Noah was the youngest in the family and had 5 sisters. Standing next to him was a girl who was also holding a sword. Also watching all of this was another girl who looked like a mage. The young man jerkily attacked the opponent. It seemed to be one of the sisters. The opponent doesn't hesitate a bit, not hesitating to block the blow. While at this time, the hero could barely hold the sword in this position. The girl, still without flinching, topples the hero's sword. He barely held the sword in his hands so that she would not fly away. But the young man did not give up and began to strike many blows to the opponent. So bewildered began to look at the whole picture. There was a feeling that these blows were not doing any damage. Suddenly, Noah almost hit his opponent, but the latter only as if with the speed of light dodges. And the hero realizes that he is too slow. The girl leaps up and attacks the hero, thus defeating him. From defeat, the young man grabs his head and begins to howl in pain. At the same time, the observer records that it was Noah's 105th defeat. The opponent comes up skeptically to report that she defeated him again with a single attack. As it turns out, this opponent was the young man's sister. Her name was Risa, and she was the second of the sisters. In addition, Risa was a holy sword and the strongest swordsman. Still looking at her brother the same way, asking him how many years had passed since he started learning the sword. Risa lifts him up by his sleeves, and the young man, head down, informs him that he has been studying the sword for 3 years. Hearing the answer, the girl doesn't understand why his brother is so weak. After all, she has been his master for all 3 years, and he has failed. She seriously makes it clear that Noah has no talent. To what dumbfounded by the words of his sister, the hero says that he is already trying his best. After the words of the hero, the girl is not on a joke angry and orders him not to justify himself. In her opinion, Noah lately only does what he says. She thinks the young man lacks a rod. The hero, almost crying, begins to chime in about how his sister herself only talks about the rod all the time. No matter what he asked, she always made it clear about the lack of a rod. The young man no longer realizes whether he is doing well or not. Risa was taken aback by her siblings' words. Unable to contain her emotions, she doesn't understand how Noah can accuse the sword saint of anything. The young man again wanted to say something, but the girl, not intending to listen to his nonsense, further turns her back and is about to leave the place of training. Before she leaves, she adds that he simply has no talent, thus forcing the hero to give up. Right after this argument, Noah is approached by a girl who has been watching all of this since the beginning of the training. Approaching from behind, she gets to the point that the young man has finally brought his sister to the edge. Then, pokes at the scratch that was on the hero's face and heals it with magic, adding that whatever he does, he doesn't succeed. Then, continuing her conversation, suggests Noah to quit the sword craft and join magic. As it turns out, this girl was also the hero's sister. Seal was the 4th of 5 sisters. She was a sage, a mage who was capable of incredible things. Noah, after thanking his sister for her treatment of his sister, adds how she herself had earlier talked about how he had no talent for magic. Abruptly turning her back and turning back to the young man, pretends not to understand or recall anything about it. Then, smilingly agrees that he really has no talent for anything. Also smiling, wonders if he has a talent for anything. These words hurt Noah's feelings. He wanted to add his opinion about it, but couldn't think of anything. After that, Seal asks feistily if he has anything to add. The hero is downright so-called hardened by his inability to do so. The girl insinuates that such people have no place in such a place and he can't stay in this house. Noah doesn't even have people he can turn to for help in the future. Even now, all 5 sisters are taking care of him. After all, according to the hero's sister, they all have a very broad soul. All the said words of the relative made one feel sad. Seal asks her younger brother to memorize all the words she said, to which he quietly communicates his understanding. The girl is very happy with the young man's malleable behavior today. The girl starts her conversation again, But here she is interrupted by the hero, informing her that he intends to leave this house. Seal dumbfounded from Noah's decision. The young man turned around and announced that he would be leaving today after packing his things. The hero's sister, still not realizing the seriousness of the situation, catches up with him. She tries to find out if the hero is joking. If it's a joke, it's not so funny to her. Noah, ignoring Seal's words, asks that she inform Risa. After all, if he tells her himself, his older sister is unlikely to have left it that easy. Risa would probably stop the hero by force. Seal begins to realize the gravity of the situation and agrees with Risa's action. After all, what is he going to do after he leaves home? The girl insinuates that he will not find an easy job anywhere. The young man had long had an tête on all these words. He was going to become a seeker. Stunned, Seal takes a couple of seconds to understand her brother's words. It seems like a very bad idea to her. While her sister Noah comes to her senses, adds that the guild usually recruits people. With those words, goes to gather her things. Finally coming to her senses, the girl tries to talk her brother out of the idea. Since seekers are slaying monsters or escorts, she knows how dangerous this job is. Noah smilingly doesn't listen to his sister and claims that he will be fine. He is intent on the work he is capable of doing, such as destroying slugs or searching for lost items. Seal is still trying to dissuade the hero from this venture and wonders why he chose to be an adventurer. In the young man's opinion, it is a very good job. Since he will be able to deal with what the army or knights cannot cope with, the more there is an opportunity for people close to his sister. The girl, surprised, looks at her only brother with rounded eyes. Anyway, Noah has already decided everything for himself. He is determined to leave home. Seal, still trying to change the stubborn brother's mind, makes a suggestion to talk to the whole family about it, especially since everyone will be back by the end of the month. The recalcitrant Noah is unwavering in his decision. As his sister Arya arrives, she's sure to convince the young man to stay. Besides, he's never beaten her in an argument before. Fior was the oldest of the 5 sisters, a great merchant running her own company. After calming down a bit, the 4th sister wonders why he was going to leave home so vehemently. Suddenly, a thought comes to Seal. She begins to think that his leaving had something to do with a woman, to which Noah makes her realize that she is wrong. Especially every time they went out, he was never once alone in all 5 years, always surrounded by one of his sisters. Seal remembers all the moments and realizes her mistake. But still, he doesn't give up on his musings and assumes that he will meet someone through secret correspondences or through some secret passage that she doesn't know about. The young man is annoyed that his sister is still going on with this nonsense, about to say something. Noah reaches the gate from the castle and announces that he is leaving no matter what. He realizes if he stays in this place, he will eventually become useless trash. The hero opens the huge gate, looking at his new path in life. About to go out, he is stopped by Seal with his staff blocking his path. The 4th sister makes it clear that if he stays, he will be safe and can become much stronger. She asks him one last time if he intends to leave after everything. The young man is determined to stand his ground, so he also makes it firmly clear about leaving. Seal gets angry and informs him of the possibility of his death in that direction. The young man realizes all this, but is willing to sacrifice. The girl turns around and leaving gives him an ox on all his actions, but whatever happens to him, she won't care anymore. These words in no way hurt the hero. He only calmly thanks his sister for the care she has shown up to this point. Looking at the back of the departing Seal, Noah announces his departure. The girl seems to be upset by her brother's conclusive decision. She bowed her head as if out of desperation. Unable to contain her emotions, the girl cries out in tears, asking the young man not to leave. But by this time, he has already left the gate at a sufficient distance and having wrapped up a certain scroll, with a satisfied face intends to go forward towards new adventures. The hero's name is Noah, and he is on his way to the border town of Razia. This story is about a useless young man and his 5 special sisters who cause various events. It would seem to be the most ordinary story. But is it? And is Noah really that useless? Noah finally gets to where he's been longing to go. He looks at the map and begins to reason with himself. On the eastern side of the continent is the human world, and on the western side is the demon world. He sees from his overwhelming emotions about the overflowing feelings that located on their border is a paradise for adventurers, according to the young man. The hero stands on a hill from which there is a marvelous view of the city. He watches the whole scene with admiration, realizing that he has finally reached the border town of Razia. Noah is reeling with thoughts of how he left home a week ago. He's also sure that having gotten this far, it's unlikely that his sisters will find him easily. When you think about it that way, he still can't say he's completely reassured. Suddenly, an unknown man begins to rapidly approach the young man, calling out in parallel. The young man turned around. He didn't realize if the call was for him or someone else. As it turned out, it was the merchant Ort. He announced the imminent departure of the wagon. All business Noah does for his own safety, lest his sisters find him. The merchant announces his arrival in town. Ort begins to tell how a lot of things happened this time. He is very pleased that the cargo has remained intact. Suddenly, the merchant's look changes. He starts questioning Noah and tries to find out if he will become an adventurer in this city. Hearing a positive answer from the hero, Ort takes out an unknown envelope and hands it to the young man. The surprised hero tries to find out what the strange envelope is. The merchant explains that this envelope is his letter of recommendation. He thinks the hero will definitely need it. Surprised by the merchant's generosity, he thanks him from the bottom of his heart. The young man did not expect such kindness and generosity, to which Ort chimes in with his thoughts. Without Noah, they would not have been able to finish this journey, well, the man, also grateful in return. From the merchant's actions, the young man is taken aback. But the man still continues to state his thoughts. He can't imagine how things would have turned out without Noah. A few days ago, a certain incident happened, which forced the merchant to come out to hide behind the backs of the hero and his comrade. The man told the young man to stay close to him. They were ready to remove the sword from its sheath on his belt. As it turned out, the merchant's crew was attacked by monsters. They, too, were armed and were rapidly advancing towards where Noah was. Comrade Orta, seeing the whole situation, offers to let go, hiding in a safe place. But the merchant had no intention of leaving his goods behind. But his assistant still insisted on retreating. After all, they don't want to die. At this time, the armed Noah heard a strange sound from above him. It was a goblin that decided to attack by jumping down from a tree. The young man pushed the man away so that they would not be hit by the blow. The monster struck the ground with a rumbling thud with his club. His attack was only a few centimeters away from the young man. Unlike the man who was frightened by such actions, Noah did not let his guard down. As if out of nowhere, a goblin general appeared with a sword in his hands. The monster, without wasting a second, decided to strike at his opponents. Noah heroically pushes the man away so he won't get hurt, but he himself stays where he is, determined to act. The hero sees the goblin attempting to strike him, but he notices that compared to Lisa's sword, it moves as if in slow motion. Noah easily dodges the goblin general's attacks. It was just like a warm-up for him. Approaching the crew, he makes sure that no one is hurt. Hearing a positive response, attacks the oncoming goblin general. The hero moved like lightning from his seat to defeat the monster. The goblin, he forces Noah to kick back so hard that his feet leave depressions in the ground, thus reaching as far as his crowd of goblins. Wasting no time, Noah himself approaches his enemies. With a swing of his sword, he instantly chops his enemies like butter with a single blow. After surveying the situation and how many more enemies are left, he takes a breather. The merchant and his assistant watched with their mouths open. They had no time to realize how the young man had defeated everyone so quickly. Noah is shouting from his position to let it be understood that he wants to bring up the rear. He is going to support the crew as best he can. The man was still looking at all of this with great amazement, and did not understand how the young man had defeated the goblin general with one blow. The merchant was also looking at the situation in amazement, but from the shock he could not utter a word. Coming to his senses, Ort begins to admire Noah. He thinks the hero's battle afterward was amazing. Like the legend of the hero Zeke who slew the dragon King Badius. After finishing his business, the young man approaches the merchant and talks about how he didn't do anything that big. therefore doesn't understand such admiration from Orth. But the merchant stands his ground, thinks of the hero not only as awesome, but also humble. For all the words of praise, Noah suggests that we should also pay attention to the bravery of Shin and the other accompanying adventurers. The stubborn Orth still takes the young man's words as modesty and fails to see what help his crew have given. Sheena heard the merchant's words and lowered his head in frustration. Ort, still continuing his conversation, explains that he doesn't want to say bad things about them. But as soon as his adventurers saw the monsters stronger, they threw them at Zeke. The hero didn't even know that was actually the case. At the same moment, Sheena could still hear the conversation between the young man and the merchant. To himself, he thought to himself that they had no choice, as there were too many monsters. Noah, trying to somehow defuse the situation, reports that these goblins were indeed stronger than normal. Sheena, interrupting their discussion, reports their arrival in town. Already in the center of town, Noah and Orth say goodbye. It turns out that the merchant has a store in the southern shopping district. Their paths have come to part. The man thanks the young man once again for his help, and he hears a similar response in return. The man will also look forward to seeing him in his store, claiming that he will teach Zeke a lot. To which, the hero responds with an obligatory visit after settling in. Noah arrived at the Adventurers Guild. It was Razia's branch. He finally takes the first step. Standing at the guild gate, fear grips him. The young man becomes nervous. Suddenly, Noah heard a certain voice asking the reason for his being in the guild. The hero abruptly turns around to see who it is and how it came to be behind him. Turning around, he sees a man who realizes that he scared the young man. Apologizing for his tactlessness, he explains himself. The man thought something was wrong with the hero, which is the reason he called him out. Continuing to talk, explains if he has business with the guild, he may not be shy. The unknown man makes it clear that he can just open the door. The guild will always accept someone who has a spirit of adventure. Besides, it all depends on the young man himself and what he can achieve, and he does not need to jump out of his pants for the sake of it. The hero smiles awkwardly and agrees. Upon entering the Adventurers Guild, Noah is greeted by the registrar, Lemuria. She greets the hero in a friendly manner and tries to see if he wants to register. The young man smilingly agrees, after which Lemuria gives a form to fill out. Noah decides to write all the data real, cover the name. After filling out the form and returning it back to the registrar, he becomes adventurous from that point on. Apologizing for his haste, Noah wants to decide to sell the monster parts. Hearing a positive answer, pulls out his sack. Lemuria is surprised. She doesn't understand where his stuff is. Noah, however, explains that all the monster parts are in his sack. Plus, adds about the large amount of goods. Therefore, asking permission for him to put everything on the counter. The girl is frozen with stunned. She takes a close look at the young man's purse and realizes that it is magical. The receptionist shows the table where he can put all his goods. While pulling out the goods, Noah begins to ask about his magical bag. To his questions, the girl briefly replies that the price of such a bag is incredibly high. The hero recalls how his sister Seal once told him that if one aspires to become a wizard, this is the bare minimum. Placing the item on the table, he wonders if there are many wizards at all. Lemuria stares at all the merchandise Noah had put out with her mouth open in surprise and shock. But it's not like he didn't realize what the problem was. It all seemed normal to him. Having come to her senses a little, the girl in amazement does not realize who this man is. Lemuria clamps down on Noah, interrogating and trying to find out who the young man is. To which the hero replies with incomprehension that he is but an amateur who has studied a little of the arts of sword and magic. But the girl did not believe a word of it. After all the materials from the goblins were top-level materials. Especially she doesn't think that such a young man was able to defeat these goblins. The girl starts to go through all the materials he put up. Since she was versed in all this, she realized which item was of top quality and which was not. As it turned out, Noah had put up 4 Supreme D rank goblins, 1 C rank goblin general. She thinks that if he destroyed all of them alone, and he's not a B rank adventurer, it's all very suspicious. B rank is one of the most first-rate ranks. Therefore, it's simply impossible for a rookie. But then, Lemuria assumes that the so-called Zeke, was originally a knight. Then it would all make a difference. But the hero, not choosing to lie, honestly replies that he never was one. Finding no other opinion on how the young man got all these materials, speculates about stealing these things, to which Noah resoundingly denies such a train of thought. It seems that the girl was starting to think that he stole all these things after all. Besides, he is still very young. Also, the girl thinks he looks like a thief. Suddenly, Noah remembers the letter of recommendation that the merchant wrote. Without hesitation, the young man gives the letter to the girl. She is surprised to see Mr. Ordo's coat of arms. She immediately opens the letter to read it. In the letter, the merchant knew in advance that there would be a misunderstanding that the hero brought so many high-level materials. In the letter, Ordo assures the receptionist how the young man obtained all of these goods himself. He confirms all his words and Noah's actions. All this the girl reads with a kind of amazement. Having finished reading, Lumeria at the same moment starts apologizing to Noah. She believes Mr. Sordo. There is no doubt in his words. But now, the girl is faced with another question. What should she do next? The young man is still a novice, though very strong. Out of nowhere, a man comes out of nowhere. He understands the girl and encourages her. Looking in the direction of the person who said this, the registrar freezes. As it turns out, it was the guild master who met Noah at the guild door. This man believes despite being a newcomer, if an adventurer's strength is great, there's no problem. The hero recognizes this man, but he couldn't even think that the man standing in front of him would turn out to be the guild master. The man had not introduced himself to the young man all this time. He considered apologizing and presumably introducing himself. This man was named Abitora at a rather mature age, and besides that he was a guild master in Razia, Noah was digesting this whole situation in his head. Still, this man turned out to be an incredible person. Lumeria interrupted the young man's thoughts and asked Abitora why he was here. He notices the crowd of people already gathered in the reception area and informs the girl. She apologizes and immediately leaves the discussion. Leaving Noah and the guild master alone, she forgets to explain about the special exam. Abitora switches the subject and asks Noah about his final decision. But the hero didn't understand what the man was getting at. He explained to him that it is up to the young man to decide whether he will take the exam or not. If he refuses, then he will start as a common adventurer. The guildmaster realizes, even refusing the exam, it would be a pretty good option for Noah. Therefore, Abitora suggests that he think about it. After all, this is the young man's path as an adventurer anyway. The next day, Noah arrives at the place where a special exam will be held. As it turns out, the exam will be held at the training area below the guild. This place was previously used for skill confirmation, all for knights and warriors who wished to join the guild. The young man couldn't take his eyes off the place he was in. He was taken to a certain hall, from which the hero was also rendered speechless by what was happening around him. The girl who explained and guided the hero explains that in this place, the hero will have a simulated battle with the examiner. Also, if he gets above a certain level, he will start from rank D. But then, dangling in anticipation, the girl warns Noah. If the examiner doesn't come, they won't be able to start. Suddenly, the assistant grabs the young man's hands and calls out to him. She decides to cheer him up, saying that despite the difficulty of the simulated battle is very high, she believes in the victory of the hero. Letting go of the girl's hands, the so-called Zeke inquires in the disadvantages of passing this exam. The girl starts to say, if the hero feels that D rank orders will be too difficult, he can choose lower rank orders. After these words, Noah calmed down, and while he was thinking about something, the assistant was looking around to see if the examiner had come. The hero is very happy to become an adventurer. He has wanted it for so long. But he is plagued by doubt whether he can gain confidence with today's result. The young man realizes that as soon as he goes on adventures, he is only praised. He seems to begin to realize his full power, but remembering his sisters and their words about what a loser he is, so decides to let go of thoughts of his strength. He is no match for his sisters. He does come to the conclusion that he's not that strong after all. While Noah was hovering in his thoughts, a girl comes running to the place where the exam is to be held, apologizing for being late. The assistant reprimands the tardiness. This was repeated and more than once. The girl's name was Kruta, who had a rank of a... Also, she was Noah's examiner. The girl accompanying the hero all this time introduces them to each other. The young man notices upon observation that she is the same year as him by feel. Kruta notices the expression on Noah's face and takes it as a doubt in her abilities. The young man shakes his head negatively and tries to justify himself. The attendant gives a detailed account of the examiner. It turns out that she is a rank A adventurer, which is a rarity for Razia's branch. Despite her age, Kruta is a true professional in assessing abilities. This girl's self-confidence reminded Noah of Sister Seal. At this time, the young examiner notices him hovering in the clouds and leans over to ask about it. Kruta recounts how she has heard of him many times. As it turns out, he is rumored to be a promising newcomer. But also, she notices him an insecurity, and yes, the strength of his will she did not notice. The girl immediately warns the hero. If he relaxes, even in imitation, there is a risk of getting seriously hurt. She makes sure whether he is definitely ready to go to such an exam. Hearing a firm positive answer in reply, she looks at the young man carefully. The attendant gives a sign of offense for the examination. But before doing so, she explains that the fight will end when the opponent surrenders or she herself stops them. After Kruta and Noah have prepared and armed themselves, the attendant gives a sign to begin the exam and moves away from the battle scene. Once the exam has started and the hero remembers the words of the examiner. Earlier she had said that she did not feel any strong will from the hero. It has been 3 years since Noah started practicing the sword art. He realizes if you tell a person every day about uselessness, he won't be able to feel his strength. Kruta has noticed how the young man has become even weaker, but even so, she has no intention of giving in. The girl believes that an adventurer is someone who constantly faces danger. And if she is not wrong in her assessment, he will lose his life in this exam. Without letting her guard down, strikes her first blow at the hero. Noah dodges Krut's attack. She, noticing this, takes note of his good reaction. The young man, on the other hand, notes the girl's quickness. But it was just beginning. The girl jumped over the boy to make another strike. Kruta attacked the hero like a Eula, not giving him a moment's respite. Noah dodged as best he could to keep his sword from hitting him. They were both focused on this exam, and only the clang of swords could be heard. How will the hero come out of this situation when the girl was persistently trying to overpower him? Will he have enough fortitude? Noah realizes that the girl is attacking too often. To this, he can't respond in any way with a blow. Wonders how he needs to get away from this situation faster. At the same time, Kruta assumes the young man's thoughts. She is not going to let him accomplish what he has planned. Without wasting a second, the girl aims at the hero to make her attack. But upon reaching the place where he was standing, she falls into a stupor. It turns out she couldn't strike because Noah runs away from that spot moments before the strike. The girl assesses the situation with incomprehension, noting about his fast running skills. But at this pace, he won't be able to attack. The girl realizes that the so-called Zeke's weapon is a wooden sword. Also, he doesn't have the magic to attack quickly from a distance after all. Therefore, she is going to increase her speed and suppress the hero with the frequency of attacks. Meanwhile, the young man is suspiciously quiet. He stood in his stance, putting his sword in his belt pouch, thinking of something. It seems he is about to take action himself. Kruta noticed the guy's strange actions. With not understanding his actions and why he put his sword away, not going to just stand there and watch. She, thinking she could easily dodge the young man's attacks, begins to advance. Suddenly, right in front of the examiner, he pulls his sword back out, thus making an attack. Such actions on the part of the newcomer dumbfounded the girl. It seems that Noah used a very strong technique. Kruta recoils and dodges the attack by pushing off the ground so as not to get hit. The watcher and the girl, having fully seen this spectacle, stand stunned with incomprehension of what has happened. Kruta, still in a state of confusion, comes to her senses. Assessing the situation, she realizes that the hero used an attack that uses vacuum. In other words, the name of the attack is Sword of Vacuum. She begins to question the young man. After all, this is the secret technique of the Holy Sword, and does not understand where he learned it. But Noah didn't understand this reaction. After all, his sister Lisa told him that this technique is the most basic for the swordsman, so he could not realize the rarity of his actions. The hero embellishes the truth a bit and informs his rival that he learned this attack from his sister at a dojo in the city. Kruta believes the young man's words and realizes where he supposedly learned it from and calms down. Suddenly, she informs him that she too will become serious in this battle. The observer notices this and reprimands the girl. After all, for measurements, she can't fight for real. But she, assured that everything will be alright, proceeds to unknown methods. Kruta intends to test the hero just a little. Noah, watching all this, sees how the rival has created a sword out of magic. He realizes if he tries to block the blow, the wooden sword will simply cut the sword. In addition, the young man assumes that the speed of her attacks might increase as well. Oblivious to his musings, Noah compares the examiner's sword to Sister Lisa's. He recalls one of his training sessions when he tried to block her attack with all his might, recalling that he failed and flew several meters away trying to hold the attack. Also, Noah recalls how he couldn't see his sister's movements. And after the defeat, he heard about the lack of a pivot as usual. Kruta, looming over the hero, again notices that he has fallen into his thoughts. Before he can come to his senses, the girl, having given a sign, begins her actions with great speed. The young man immediately notices her speed. It has noticeably increased in times. But he does not panic because he is able to discern this speed. With these thoughts, the hero blocks the attack of the rival, who in a flash was in front of him. Noah easily dodged her actions, without wasting time, and himself strikes, from which the girl also evaded. The young man is completely focused by the battle. He is thinking of something. Noah abruptly turns sideways, thus hitting and pushing the opponent away. His punch was excellent. The girl is hit and flies back a few meters. Then, with a rumbling thud, she pitches to the ground with her face. The hero looked at his opponent, waiting for further action. Suddenly, Kruta raises her hand and gives a sign and her loss. The observer looked at this whole picture with astonishment. She couldn't understand how the newcomer had defeated rank A. Running up to the examiner, ascertains her condition. At the same time, the young man begins to think that he has overreached his strength. Kruta stands up, shaking herself off. The girl makes it clear that she is fine. She only bumped her back. Lumeria, seeing the girl's appearance, shouting, reports a not-so-good situation. As it turned out, her clothes were unbuttoned in the front, and all her charms were on display. Kruta looks at her clothes with incomprehension. Noticing the whole situation at last, Kruta shrieks with embarrassment and covers herself with her hands while the watcher gives her clothes back to her. Noah, also noticing all of this, flashes away, covering her eyes. After getting dressed, the girl tries to see if the guy saw her, to which he replies in the negative. The hero fails to restrain his gaze on his rival, turns his head away. Suddenly, Lumeria asks to wait for her and runs off towards the exit, explaining her actions by saying that she is going to call for a certain suster. Kruta sighs, saying that this is her usual behavior. Noah smiles at this, understanding the situation. Suddenly, the girl called out to the hero approaching him at a close enough distance. She touched the young man's face with her hand, thus embarrassing him and making him uncomfortable. Noah removed her hands by moving slightly away. Kruta, not realizing what the matter was, told him not to be afraid of him, assuring him that nothing would happen. But the young man didn't believe her words. She must be up to something. The girl once again approached the hero and grabbed him by the shoulders. Slightly embracing him, decides to whisper something to the confused hero. Suddenly, the rival offers him to join her team. Distant smiles contentedly. Noah stands in confusion at her actions and the situation at hand. Whether he is called to join the team, what will the hero choose? In the kingdom of Winster, far away from the gaze of others, was the house of Noah. Present were the fourth sister, the sage and mage Seal, and the second sister, Holy Sword Lisa. In addition, all the other sisters were present in the house. The first sister, Merchant Area, the third sister, Saint Tham, and the youngest of the sisters, Artist Ecresia. Area, with a serious face, made sure everyone was gathered. Their first meeting of the sisters has begun. Angry at the situation, Area reports that she was eager to return home, but finds out Noah's departure. The still furious oldest sister questions Seal. She's not happy that the fourth sister didn't stop the naughty sibling with deterrence magic. Seal lowers her head and explains the dangers of such magic. If she were to make even the slightest mistake, anything could happen. Besides, with Noah's attitude, she couldn't stop him. In all seriousness, Arya makes it clear that she should have used this magic for their favorite sibling without a second thought. Seal was startled at such naive words from her sister with an intimidating look. Suddenly, one of the sisters stood up and asked everyone to calm down. She is trying to convey to her sisters that fighting will not lead to anything. As it turns out, it was the third of the sisters. Fam assumes Noah's departure with the fact that he faced an obstacle. Therefore, they must wait together to cope with it, thinks the third sister. She starts telling ancient stories that have nothing to do with the situation. The youngest sister didn't like her sister's nonsensical words. Acacia sits back down and begins to voice her opinion. She believes her sibling's departure is not because of any obstacle, but because of their excessive strictness. In the blink of an eye, all the sisters turned towards Acacia. They began to complain about her. After all, she too had agreed to their plan for his training. The five of them had decided everything in concert when their parents died. Even though Noah is not their own brother, he is a precious little brother to them. Acacia understands this strictness. They wanted to raise him to be strong, but she thinks he just doesn't have the talent. The fifth sister continues her reasoning for his lack of talent by giving examples. Starting from explaining on the blackboard about Sister Aries' world situation, the extra difficult magic classes with Sisters Fam and Seal, she thinks it's too much for Noah. Also, she thinks her classes were the most fun, and recalls the hardest and cruelest class. Acacia reports the cruelest class for Noah. That one was Sister Lisa with fencing training. Lisa does not realize her problem. She disagrees with her fifth sister's opinion that her classes were the worst. As it turns out, she bullied and beat up her little brother. But still Lisa does not agree with her and considers such measures were to give him a rod. The girl justifies herself by saying that at such moments she felt very sorry for Noah. The fifth sister speaks her thoughts aloud that these are typical arguments of the musk-headed Lisa. The Sword Saint is not happy with Acacia's statement. They begin to bicker. And the other sister responds by saying that the youngest sister is also not brilliantly intelligent, to which Acacia is not happy with the comparison. She's sure Lisa doesn't even know the multiplication table, and to test it, she asks how much is 9 times 3. Hearing no answer from her sister, she realizes she is right. At this point, Arya intervenes, forcing the whole mess to stop. Arya intervenes and concludes the need to find out Noah's whereabouts as soon as possible. Fam agrees with her older sister. After all, it is very dangerous outside the house. Lisa is sure their little brother will be fine, as there is no need to not worry about his sword skills, as she has trained him well. At the same time, Seal intervenes because she has also trained him well in magic. Therefore, Noah is not in danger. But Seal thinks that it's not worth worrying about that. After all, there is still a much worse thing to worry about on the contrary. Seal explains her fears and thinks they should worry about the fact that their sibling might become popular. All 5 sisters imagined what could happen from this. Everyone is horrified by their imaginations and assumptions. The first sister, with a tremor in her voice, is not going to let that happen. After all, they are the only ones who can supposedly be on his side. Fam also voiced her thoughts. She is worried that he will find a girlfriend and start doing all sorts of indecent things. Acacia agrees with the third sister's words. Also, Lisa is not left out of all these thoughts, clutching her sword and agreeing with her sister's words. The second sister stands up from her seat and realizes how naive she was. Seal covers her face with her hat and wants to present her idea to the sisters. But then she notices that Lisa is gone. Arya, in turn, is going to start searching for her as well as the other sister. So, suggests to reconvene when there is progress and exchange information. The first sister, to begin with, is going to all gather together to search hard for Noah. All the sisters do not hesitate to agree to Arya's plan of action. Suddenly, Noah gets chills, grabbing his neck. Lumeria notices the strange expression on the young man's face and ascertains his condition. As it turns out, they were in the guild warehouse. The hero doesn't understand what was causing the chills, but pretends that he's fine. The girl, holding papers in her hands and looking somewhere above, wants to say something. As it turns out, she was looking at the hero's defeated animal, also noting how healthy the animal is. Noah fulfills a rank D request to destroy the boar that was slaying the fields. Lumeria holds out a reward to the young man for the completed task. She explains to the lad that this reward will need to be exchanged for cash at the reception desk. Suddenly, the girl asks again if he's okay. The young man doesn't understand what the girl is getting at, but then realizes that the question was about his rank. It turns out that after the exam, he was given a rank of D, but Noah doesn't care about his rank. It's quite enough for him. Also, he will be happy if his rank is gradually increased. Lumeria has heard about Kruta offering him to team up. She was excited by his refusal. It seemed like a good offer to her. But the hero was not bothered by it in any way, so as not to seem rude, explains his refusal by excitement. He believes that for a newcomer, such a burden will be heavy. Especially, Kruta is similar to his sister, and for the young man, it will make it even harder. Lumeria still thinks that it was a good chance for the hero. Suddenly, the girl stops and calls out to the young man. She starts to tell him that Kruta is one of the best in their ward. She leans into Noah's ear as if she wants to tell a secret. Leaning in, Lumeria informs that Kruta is not only gorgeous when she is dressed, she is gorgeous without clothes too. The girl, as it turns out, was once with her at the hot springs. Noah is speechless at the words of his acquaintance. He is greatly embarrassed by Lumeria's words. Noah, coming to his senses, felt confused as to why Lumeria was telling him this. The girl, convinced that it was easier for guys and girls to move from friendship to a serious relationship than to keep just friendship, assumed this and began to broach the subject. Noah, realizing the gist of her words, rejected all her reasoning, considering it unrealistic for him. The notion of possible contempt on Kruta's part frightened him. The idea of forming a team was also weighing on him. Suddenly, Kruta appeared beside the hero. This caused Lumeria to be surprised, but Noah continued to speak his thoughts. The girl asked him where he got such doubts from. Noah, not realizing that it wasn't Lumeria, answered her, relying on his own assumptions. In his eyes, she gave the impression of a fool before the battle began. However, as he continued his pondering, he began to gradually realize something important. The realization finally came to him. He hadn't been talking to Lumeria all this time, but to Cool. She apologized for the situation in the exam, saying that she had underestimated him and asked to team up again. To which Noah firmly refused, changing the subject, finding out what the reason for her presence was. As it turned out, Kruta was gathering information. Then, turning to Amelia, tells of the rumors that led to her. It turns out that she had heard that she had information about the Undeads from an eyewitness. Kruta, taking all the information, immediately leaves. Such actions throw Noah into a stupor. Lumeria notices the hero's indignation and explains the situation. She gave the girl information about her opponent. The young man became curious, and he tries to find out more. But Amelia only briefly replies that it seems to her that this is the situation where Kruta needs a partner. Realizing her spoken words, the girl's eyes rounded. Lumeria realizes that she said words she shouldn't have said and begins to apologize. Noah calms her down, showing his understanding. Amelia falls into her own thoughts. She thinks about her said mistake. After all, she promised Kruta to keep it a secret. Because of the aura that surrounds the hero, Lumeria randomly tells different things. But then, remembers the inexperience of the young man and sighs heavily. Because of this, there are many dangers surrounding him. The girl leans over to Noah and begins to whisper. She warns him because of his refusal to cooperate. After all, Kruta has assured of his return. Lumeria repeats her words again that she is the strongest in their guild. Therefore, she has many people who would like to be on the same team with her. Amelia worries how the rookie has turned down the team several times. She is worried about how the other adventurers who saw all this will react. The girl explains, in other words, it's all jealousy on the part of the other adventurers. Noah gets a little scared and decides to take care of the town's inquiries for a while. Lumeria doesn't like this way out, because city inquiries are all sorts of leftovers that represent cleaning or searching. The young man, not discouraged, realizes the existence of hard money. Especially, Noah has long wanted to make friends with the people of the town. He thinks if he gradually performs such tasks, he can increase his reputation. Sighing heavily, Lumeria reports an excess of such assignments. Finding an errand with good pay, he shows it to the hero. The task was to clean up the church cemetery. The young man, overjoyed, accepts the errand. Not far from the church, among the sewers, an unknown man begged for help. But suddenly, he screamed loudly, after which he became quiet. As it turned out, a certain mage had killed him, deeming him useless. Casting aside all thoughts, walks away, leaving the corpse somewhere behind him. Turns out a certain mage didn't kill that man, but turned him into something resembling a walking corpse. The villain, holding the unidentified object in his hands, is thinking about something. He has sown seeds of hatred in different places, soon to bear fruit. Still walking through the sewers, he thinks about who he would choose as a test subject next time. Noah, who took the alias Zeke so as not to reveal the whole truth about himself, had previously taken a quest. He took the task of cleaning up church graves, and this task he accomplished perfectly. After the clearing, Sister Lee, who serves in the church, offered a new quest. She tells how some sort of evil dwells in the canals under the city. Then, Lee is a little hesitant about this assignment. After all, it is of high rank. Will the young man be able to solve this problem? Noah suggests that the miasmas have gathered in the water canal under the city. Noah summons the magic of holiness. Out of his hands comes something that looks like a circle with various symbols and patterns. The adventurer Zeke still had a D rank. The minions of the church and beyond gathered around the hero's magic. Church Sister Lee admires this magic. She compares the magic of light to a sanctuary. A rank B adventurer, Rogue, on the other hand, is glad that he won't have to worry about miasmas for a while. The same rank B adventurer, Mino, notes that Noah isn't exactly an ordinary person. But if his magic doesn't work, she threatens to chop him up. The young man, looking at Mino, feels a hostile aura that makes him uncomfortable. The hero has used quite a bit of mana, so he thinks the miasmas won't work on them. They arrived at the city canal on a new request, which stated the appearance of miasmas. Therefore, they need to investigate the canal. Mino, talking about magic, feels anxious about the D-ranked hero. It was evident from her how skeptical she was of Noah. The church sister didn't like the adventurer's words. She menacingly makes it clear that the young man is strong enough. Then, smiling, she begins to tell how Noah, somehow, cleared the entire cemetery in just a day. Mino was surprised, since it is impossible to clean such a huge place in a day. The hero smilingly explains how he cleaned the cemetery in a day. As it turns out, he used the magic of Light Blanche. The girl still did not believe him, because this spell is used to destroy the undead. But Noah calmly explains that this spell is also effective for cleaning. The adventuress, coming to her senses, clarifies that, but used magic on the entire cemetery. To which the young man, not understanding anything, positively replied. Mino, dumbfounded, looked at the young man. At this time, Lee came up from behind and smiled wryly, saying that this kind of magic for cleaning, even in the church, is used by dozens of people. She proudly praised Noah, hinting at his skill. To which the young man smiled awkwardly, remembering Sister Fam. After all, she was the one who taught him such techniques. Nino is like a child, puffing up his cheeks, not realizing whether he likes Noah or not. Seeing this whole picture, the hero looks at her with awkwardness. After all, they first met, so he does not understand why the girl has such feelings for him. Rogue, also, watching this whole picture, begins to envy the hero. As it turns out, Rogue and Nino were brother and sister. Rogue begins to tell how his sister is a fan of Kruda. She tried many times to invite her to collaborate, but was turned down every time. After Nino found out that Kruda has called Noah to her team several times, she begins to be jealous of him. The hero, realizing the girl's attitude towards himself, assures her of his abilities. He claims that he will do his job as a professional. Rogue, trying to change the subject, tells the young man about his sister as a brat. Therefore, he shouldn't take her words seriously. The adventuress, angry at her brother, also tells how the registrar blew him off. The guy, however, sadly recalling that incident, asks his little sister not to remind her of this, referring to the fact that it was a long time ago. But the girl refutes his words and turns in her brother. The situation that hurt Rogue happened only 3 months ago. The church sister, interrupting the silliness, reminds them of the assignment. It's past time for them to start their research. As they approach the door that opened the entrance to the canal, no one notices its heaviness. Lee clarifies the situation as to why the door is so big and heavy. It turns out that earlier, criminals set up a lair in the sewer. Despite their patrols, scary people began to gather there, so it became dangerous and difficult to approach them. And when they came to their senses, they saw that many miasmas had gathered. Noah listened to the story from Lee with fascination. Walking along the canal, the hero is interested in the cause of the miasmas. It turns out that the cause was in the monsters, because of their large number, accumulated miasmas. Suddenly, the young man warns of the approach of the enemy. But the enemy was nowhere to be seen. Therefore, everyone thought that he was mistaken. But no sooner had he finished speaking about the hero's wrongness, something began to bubble up in the waters of the canal. From the muddy and dark as tar water, monsters that looked like human skeletons came out. The team gathered in a small circle, preparing for battle. Rogue, smirking, informs them that it was the ghouls that came. With his talk, he let his guard down, and while he was expounding his thoughts, one of the foul creatures crawled on top of the guy. As soon as the monster crawled to the right place, jumps right on the adventurer, a monster that didn't have time to do any damage to Rogue. His life was saved by his little sister Nino. The boy covered himself with a shield so that the remains and blood of the ghoul did not hurt him. He asks his little sister not to throw the monsters at him, to which the girl only prompted him to start fighting too. He, on the other hand, saying that he knows and himself covering himself with his shield, advances on the monsters. Noah, seeing his co-commander's attack, notices his strength. Also, he, observing both of them, notices their coherence. After slaying all the ghouls, Leah wonders if no one was hurt. Rogue says that thanks to Noah's warning, there are no injuries. Nino, on the other hand, notes that there are no more ghouls. She also admires the hero's instincts. He sensed the enemy before the shinobi did. Hearing the word shinobi, the young man thinks, after all, they are warriors of the East, specializing in espionage. But at the same time, the young man realizes that it can't be said to be lucky. If he defeated Sister Kruta, he must be at least capable of it. In addition, the hero meets shinobi for the first time, although he has heard of them many times. Nino brings the young man out of his thoughts. She wonders how he was able to do that. Noah, on the other hand, attributes it to the feeling of being present to the fact that it's the basics. Therefore, he doesn't see anything wrong with it. But the girl knows that sensing an invisible opponent is a high-level art. Because of that, she is taken aback. After all, the young man is only a D rank. He, trying to ward off any suspicion, agrees with her. He remembers what Sister Lisa said about feeling the opponent with closed eyes as the basics of the basics. Church Sister sees the strangeness of the whole situation. They often took orders to destroy the dead. The ghoul species usually have low intelligence. They shouldn't wait in a siege. Rogue also agreed with Lee. This was the first time his ghouls attacked from above. Lee suggests the possibility of such actions being someone else's plot. Noah realizes the miasmas are growing denser. The church sister, interrupting the hero, informs him that they have traveled far enough. The young man offers to once again impose sanctuary in the direction they are traveling. Suddenly, Rogue calls out to his sister. And the moment the girl turns around towards her brother, ribbons that wriggled like snakes appear behind her. These ribbons grab Nino, wrapping around her whole body, also gagging her. The others, seeing this picture, are horrified. The hero raises his head and he seems to notice something. In front of them, a huge skeleton monster emerged from the water. His whole body was wrapped with ribbons, among which Nino was hanging. The monster coming out of the water howled. As it turned out, it was a zombie dragon. All of them are shocked from the situation. How in this place, there was a disaster-level monster. Noah, coming to his senses, remembers about the girl. He jumped towards the monster with a dash to rescue his comrade. The hero cut off with his sword the ribbons that were wrapped around Nino. The girl is immediately grabbed by her brother. But Noah, landing in the water, looks up and sees something terrible. The zombie dragon began to loom over the hero. Noah doesn't hesitate to use his technique. Once more raising his gaze to the monster, realizes that his actions have changed nothing. Wiping the blood off his face, the young man does not hesitate to rush to the attack. He also, with a jerk, leaps towards the monster. And swift as an arrow bypasses all the obstacles in the form of ribbons. After flying a sufficient amount above the monster, swiftly aims for the dragon to stick his sword into it. The hero sticks the sword directly into the zombie dragon's back, but he sees that the sword didn't do a millimeter of damage to the monster. Its body appeared to be very hard. The hero, before he has time to come to his senses, notices the ribbons tending to him. Gathering his strength, prepares to cut them down. Noah, knocking the ribbons away from him, tries again to do damage to his opponent's body. Utilizing his technique, sees that his actions are futile. Despite his slicing off the ribbons, the monster's main body takes no damage. The hero realizes that if he continues like this, no matter how much he attacks, it won't do any good. He realizes he needs to increase his strength some more. Even if the young man does that, his sword won't be able to withstand his attacks. At this time, the hero manages to remember his sister Lisa, who always told him to take care of his weapon. Suddenly, Nino calls out to the hero, calling for him to run from this place. She sees its magnitude, so she suggests running down a narrow path. Then, the monster won't be able to chase them. Just as suddenly, out came the ghouls, as if reading their thoughts of escape. The church sister reports that a bunch of ghouls appeared on their way. This situation complicates things considerably. Rogue begins to think it was all planned and they were trapped. Suddenly, they hear a strange growl. Turning in the direction from which the sound came, the comrades are horrified. The zombie dragon revealed all of its ribbons and was slowly advancing towards the hero and his comrades. Noah stood in front of the monster, protecting the others. He mentally apologizes to his sister Lisa. He will most likely break his sword, which is life to the swordsman. Noah is willing to sacrifice his sword to save and defeat the monster. The young man intends to slightly violate what she taught him in order to protect his comrades. He gathered all his strength together and concentrated before his actions. From the hero's emanating aura, the comrades stood in a stupor. They had never seen such a strong aura before. From its power and light, the comrades had to cover their eyes. Noah cast a fierce glare at the zombie dragon, aiming for its heart. The monster glared back at the hero with the same determination. Both were ready to face off in mortal combat, determined to end this battle with one outcome victory. The terrifying sounds made by the young man's opponent echoed through the canal, reminding them of the approaching monster and making their blood run cold in their veins. The zombie dragon released completely all of its ribbons and begins to bind them together, thus creating a drill out of it. With all the ribbons connected and creating a weapon for itself, the monster begins to spin it around. Noah, on the other hand, raises his sword above his head, gathering all his strength there. His body, along with the sword, begins to emit light. He prepares to attack. The gazes of the opponents met. In them, they could feel the full determination and readiness for battle. After their gazes crossed, the monster begins to approach his so-called drill. The hero was ready for this attack. He kept his sword above his head the entire time. Noah swung his sword, shrouded in silence, and suddenly lowered it, striking his opponent's weapon. This duel of young men promised to be one of the most memorable in history. As Noah's and the zombie dragon's weapons came into contact, something incredible happened. A powerful wave of blows and sounds erupted from their impact, forcing the comrades to cover themselves. The hero, thanks to his powerful punch, finally pierces through the monster's body. From the impact, the zombie dragon is toppled right against the wall of the canal. Its skeleton, in an instant, breaks apart and the monster's core begins to show through it. Noah, from whom the aura was still emanating, begins to assess the situation. He is glad his ranged attack worked. Already deciding to move on to his next course of action, he hears a cracking sound. His sword shattered into small pieces, just like the bones of the monster. The young man didn't expect his sword to fall apart. It seems that it couldn't withstand the magic power. Panicking, he recalls his sister Lisa. If she saw this, she would scold him to the fullest. He never thought that such a situation could happen. But suddenly, the hero notices how the monster begins to recover. The church sister explains to the hero about the stone that came out after the enemy's bones broke. As it turned out, this magical stone had the properties of recovery. The zombie dragon comes fully to his senses and turns around towards the young man. He was observing the whole situation. Suddenly, he hears someone behind him telling him about the danger of the situation. A zombie dragon attacks the hero with its fiery breath. Before he can be hit by the enemy and take damage, Rogue stands in front of the young man, protecting him with his shield. Undaunted Noah thinks he could have handled all of this himself. Just a little more, and he would have destroyed the enemy. The hero begins to think of different plans to defeat the monster. Thinks to break it with his bare hands, but then realizes the impossibility of such a plan because it could be dangerous for others. Because such tactics will take a long time. Then he decides to defeat it with magic. However, she remembers that dragons are adamant about magic. Wandering in his thoughts, he doesn't hear his comrades calling him. Nino brings the hero out of his thoughts and plans. Explains that they are a team and they need to face the enemy together. They can help the young man in this fight. Also, the girl gives up her kunai. She carries it with her for occasions like Noah's. This kunai is made of black magic steel. A weapon like this will definitely not be able to fall apart. Nino gave this weapon to the hero for him to use in battle. In addition, Rogue informs in his help and makes it clear that they will protect Lee, in order that the hero is free to slay the zombie dragon. Encouraged Noah happily agrees to such a plan. At this time, the monster has already stopped emitting its fiery roar, and the hero, without wasting a moment, comes out with a dash from under Rogue's shield. His comrades rely on him. The young man, having set a target for himself, takes aim at him. Looking at his opponent from above, notices his magic stone. Gathering all his strength, decides to crush all the interfering bones with a single blow. Bouncing off the canal wall, Noah confidently smashes through all the bones as well as the magic stone with just one blow. He lands on the ground with full confidence of his victory in this battle. The hero makes a tin with his kunai, after which all of the zombie dragon bones break along with the monster itself. The comrades are happily watching this picture. They are happy that Noah was able to win this fight. After recovering from the shock, the comrades one by one enclosed the hero in their strong embrace. Except for Nino, she stood back and watched it all, taking in all the coolness of the young man. The church sister was already desperate, but Noah was able to overcome the monster. In addition, she calmly exhaled that no one was injured and the whole nightmare was over. The hero, remembering Nino's weapon, hands it back to the girl. He notes that the black magic steel is really cool. Even a magic stone could easily break this weapon. The girl, taking her weapon back in her hands, marvels at how he used it. After all, it wasn't easy to use it correctly. Nino, even though she was initially reluctant to recognize the hero's courageous actions, expressed her gratitude for the rescue. Stunned by this recognition, the hero modestly hinted that gratitude was unnecessary. Nevertheless, the girl realized that behind his modest appearance hid great strength and wisdom. Looking at Nino's pensive face, the young man interrupted her musings and addressed her with words designed to awaken long-harbored thoughts and feelings, to which the adventuress only waved away. Noah, not understanding the situation at hand, suddenly remembers the ghouls. All of them suddenly disappeared. The girl no longer cares about the sudden disappearance of monsters. It is important to her that the way is now free. But Rogue could not leave in peace his thoughts about whose work it is. Obviously, the intruder's target was them. The guy doesn't realize, but he has no doubt that the zombie dragon was controlled by an extremely terrifying mage. Church Sister Lee, having picked up the thoughts of the adventurer, speaks her mind. She wants to leave this place as soon as possible. Besides, the request was to investigate the miasma in the channels. A battle with a high-ranked monster was not expected. Rogue notices that such a request is of rank A and above. He suggests that his comrades gather materials and go upstairs. Everyone agrees with his decision. Also an adventurer notices how badly the sword has crumbled. He apologizes and realizes how angry his sister will be if she finds out. The boy, encouraging Noah, promises to show him a good blacksmith next time. The young man is happy about this. After all, he will be able to get a new sword before Lisa finds out about it. The adventurer, on the other hand, makes it clear that he can be relied on. As the heroes left the canal, a snake watched them. Somewhere in the kingdom of Winster, where a certain event was taking place, was Lisa. She had come to this place because she had been summoned for a rare royal command, and the reason for her being there was for another test. The king, reporting his victory this time over the sword master, sneers at her. The girl, on the other hand, is skeptical, but agrees to fight whomever the man wishes. The king was approached by a certain fellow who tried to persuade him, but he was against it and had confidence in the Argos. After all, he is not just a golem, but an artifact found in an excavation in ancient ruins. It is mounted with an ancient weapon called a Gatling gun. Mr. Magleb still couldn't calm down. He was confident that the Sword Saint would defeat him with his sword. In other words, it would be the execution of the Argos. The king was confident in the victory of his golem, therefore makes it clear that everything will be fine. At this moment, Lisa had already warmed up her muscles. Her request was clear forward, without looking back, attack with all her might. Also, she asked that they attack and fight with all their might. She believed in her strength and knew she could handle any challenge. The king admired her determination and power, but Magleb felt fear of her. Before the battle began, Lisa made a promise if she won, she would make her wish known. The king, captivated by her bravery, was ready to fulfill her every request. In the event of victory, she wishes to take a short vacation. The king thought of her weariness and desire for rest, but her goal was to find her younger brother. The man was horrified by her words, therefore promised to fulfill the girl's request. The king asked Magleb to launch the Argos. The guy, without hesitation, informs that in case of failure, is not to blame. With these words, launches the golem along with the barrier magic. Taking out her sword, Lisa ponders the reason for her younger brother's departure. When their father and mother passed away, the girl swore that she would protect her brother at all costs. But in this problem, no matter how strong it is doesn't play a role. After all, if Lisa is not on her little brother's side, will not be able to protect him. With these thoughts, the girl begins her fight, Lisa blocking the Argo's blow with her sword. Those watching this spectacle could not believe what they were seeing. She was able to block a powerful attack with her sword alone. The girl's eyes showed her determination and ferocity. She didn't hesitate for a second. Gathering her strength, Lisa raised her sword. The Sword Saint was about to use a ranged attack of 4 flashes. After preparing herself, strikes her attack at the home. Argos crackled and stopped. At the same time, Lisa, even despite her opponent, moves away from him. All the people, including the king and his mage, are shocked at how fast she handled the golem. The girl approached the place where the king was standing with the mage and stopped in front of him with dignity. Her voice sounded firm and resolute as she reported the fulfillment of the king's promise. From now on, she is taking a leave of absence to search for Sego, little brother, in the border city of Radia. Finally, the report of the destruction of the zombie dragon is completed. Comrades with the completion of the difficult task came to the guild to give the report and the remains of the monster. Church Sister Lee noticed that they never rested once. Therefore, thanks them from the bottom of her heart. Adventurer Rogue couldn't even think that they would be paid for their silence over their victory in situation. Their opponent was truly dangerous. The church sister started to speak out her thoughts, but as she was suddenly interrupted by Noah. The comrades turned in his direction. So responded his comrades. For the destruction of the zombie dragon, the silence fee and the sale of materials, the young man was given a total of 10 million gold. And Rogue was only paid for helping to destroy the monster and silence 15 million gold. Nina was only paid 25 million gold for his silence. The comrades report that they were paid correctly. After all, Noah practically destroyed the monster single-handedly. Also, Nina reminded the hero of her B status. This made it clear that she didn't need financial help. Waving goodbye, she removed herself from the young man. Noah is aware that generous rewards are offered for such assignments. At this time, Rogue, approaching the hero, interrupted his silence, reminding him of the meeting tomorrow, asking him to keep silent in front of Nina. Besides, the adventurer intended not only to visit the forge, but also to have another adventure afterward. At this time, Nina, who was walking beside the church sister, suddenly turned towards the guys and looked at them with a testing look. The next morning, Rogue was already waiting at the meeting place for Noah. The young man, noticing his comrade, cheerfully calls out to him. Noticing the hero, the adventurer calls him to him. But suddenly, his eyes widened at the horror of what he saw. As it turns out, along with Noah came Nino. The girl is happy about what is happening and starts to lead her comrades. Upset by the situation, Rogue asks her sister how she got here, to which the young adventuress shuts her brother's mouth. She knew that after the forge, he would take the hero to the water channel, so decided not to leave the two of them alone and go along with them. Noah didn't realize what water canal they were discussing about. As it turns out, this water canal is also called the brothel canal. It turns out that there are a lot of sexy girls there. Rogue, explaining everything from his side, replies that adventurers usually spend their deferred money. The girl agrees with this opinion, but she is still against the place they are going to. The young man, not intending to stay away, informs her that he is not going to go to such a place. After all, he won't be able to explain it to his sisters later. In a blink of an eye, the adventurers stand in a stupor. They didn't know that Noah had wings. The hero makes it clear about how fearful his 5 sisters are of his homeland. Rogue, seeing the hero's trepidation after mentioning the sisters, gives in to him, and decides to excuse himself only to the forge. Upon reaching the place, Noah notices how hot it is in the forge. The adventurer explains this phenomenon. It turns out, such heat is because of the workshops. There were about hundreds of them. Also, it turns out that adventurers from the central part of the continent gather in Razia as well. On top of that, the materials that are brought to this forge come from the forests of the border region. In other words, artisans and nature have come together in this place. Moreover, not far from this place, there is a kingdom of dwarves. The hero is excited. He has never seen gnomes before. The guy reports they are going to the artisan dwarf. Upon reaching the right place, Noah and Nino marvel at the size of the building. They are in anticipation. But then, Rogue, ruining all perception, shows the building they will go to. It turned out to be a small shack. The guy asks them not to worry, because unlike the store, the master himself is one of the best. Nino thinks her brother is a scoundrel for hiding such a master. The guy had a good reason, explaining that they will only know the reason when they go in there. Once inside, they feel the wild heat and the sounds of forging. Upon entering the humble hut, Rogue bowed respectfully to General Bog, noting that his skill at blacksmithing was incomparable. The blacksmith was known by the nickname Bug, and at first glance seemed an unusual man. His muscular body betrayed hard work and perseverance, but it also appeared that he was a dwarf. Bug turned to Rogue and expressed his pleasure at seeing him, noting that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. He then asked about Nino and Noah as he was seeing them for the first time. Rogue dutifully introduced them as his colleagues and respectfully answered the general's questions. The blacksmith, without giving much thought to his new acquaintances, asks who he wants, a small weakling or a girl. The adventurer shows Noah and informs him of his very good thing. Bug, on the other hand, sees nothing unusual in the hero. Rogue agrees that at first glance he looks like a simpleton, but in reality he is special. In confidence, the blacksmith tells about the young man's victory over the zombie dragon. Hearing about it, the man is taken aback. How could a young man defeat such a monster? Bug, sharply grabbing the hero by the shoulders, tries to understand whether Rogue told the truth. Hearing a positive answer from the young man, the blacksmith freezes for a couple of seconds. After that, he begins to sniff. He smelled an incredible odor coming from the hero's muscles. Hearing these words, Noah covers himself. After all, he had become uncomfortable with the man's actions. The blacksmith, translating the topic, is about to get down to business. The blacksmith, moving away from Noah with all determination and firmness, asks him to remove his clothes, from which the young man falls into a stupor. He does not understand what is happening. Noah is getting embarrassed. Since was very much embarrassed. The blacksmith was not going to wait long for the hero's decisions. Therefore, begins to rush him, calling him the treasure of the world of muscles. The young man did not like being called so, and asks the man to stop such actions. Finally, after listening to the blacksmith, the young man removes his outer clothing. Rogue looked at the hero's body with admiration. Also, the adventurer, in surprise at the reaction of his old acquaintance. After all, the dwarf sees muscles all the time, but this time he had a completely different reaction. He tried to see his entire body thoroughly, admiring and marveling at it. The adventurer, also observing this picture, tries to find out how the hero trained, that he had such a trim physique. Noah, however, modestly replies how he only swung his sword. One day, while the hero was training, his sister Fam came to see him. He had been beaten up in every way possible during his training. Therefore, Sister Fam completely healed him over and over again. Based on that, the young man thinks that this is what made his body so strong. Nino, interrupting him, makes it clear from what makes his sword better than her kunai. Suddenly, everyone turned towards the girl. She laughed with a hero's laugh, but brushed it off, justified by her sneeze. But Noah didn't believe her. Interrupting the conversation, Rogue reports the next direction. They are going to the guild. Something seems to be bothering the hero. He and his companions go to the guild together. After all, the request that Bug gave to the guild was meant for him. The blacksmith instructed Noah to collect a shell of Luctatos for polishing guns. The blade he made for him turned out to be a masterpiece. So he has requested a task to test the young man. And if he could complete this task, Bug would recognize him as the owner of the blade. Because of this, Noah is a bit embarrassed. He didn't want to involve his acquaintances in this. Despite the hero's words, the companions believe that they are adventurers. Therefore, they should help each other. Especially, the Luctatos request is rank B. Hence, Noah can't accept the request without them. Upon arriving at the guild, the registrar, Lumeria, thanks the comrades for providing the documents. As of now, their group's registration is complete. The hero, noticing Lumeria's good mood, begins to ask around. The receptionist, exhaling heavily, tells of her joy. As it turns out, they finally sorted out the recent incident. Thanks to this, the girl will be able to sleep tonight after a long time. The young man, leaning slightly into the registrar, realizes that the situation was eyes because of the zombie dragon. The girl, also leaning in with a whisper, reports that they are gathering perfect rank adventurers. Looks like they will be exploring the underground channels. Unexpectedly, Kruta appeared. She will also go on this exploration. Noah was startled by her sudden appearance. But then, someone calls the girl very loudly and resoundingly. As it turned out, it was Nino. She joyfully ran to her, calling her sister. The girls hugged each other tightly after the separation. Nino asks her sister about the new assignment for a rank, after which asks Kruta to be careful. After all, when she herself was there, felt only danger. All this time, the hero observed this, in passing remembering that Nino admires the adventuress. But Kruta makes it clear her power. She shouldn't worry about it. Nino agrees with the adventurous coolness. She could see how happy she was about the meeting. The happiness did not last long. Rogue, looking for an excuse, takes his sister aside, leaving Noah and the girl alone. At this point, Kruta realizes if it's a zombie, it's fate. The hero, not understanding what she is referring to, looks at her questioningly. All her not understanding Kruta's words, the hero asks what she is getting at. The girl, a little thoughtful. Smiling, she begins to tell that it is an ordinary story. The girl's homeland was destroyed, and to get revenge, she became an adventurer. Typical ordinary story of hers, Kruta thinks. The young man, realizing the story she told about her, looks at her. To which, the girl on the other hand asks to sympathize with her. After all, Own has no right. The hero again fails to understand what the girl is driving at. Turning her head toward the young man, Kruta explains why she wanted so badly to become a team with him. It turns out that the girl wanted to make him a decoy during the revenge. Despite Noah's refusals, she still managed to find a clue, considering herself right in this situation. Suddenly, the girl remembered the time. She had to leave. Saying goodbye to Noah, she leaves. Catching up with Kruta, Noah stops her and hands her a talisman. This talisman is a magical stone with the magic of light inside. The hero hands it over because it will be able to protect against miasmas to some extent. Unexpectedly, Nino intervened to them, addressing the young man with a sarcastic tone, considering him not too smart. She took the talisman from Noah's hands. After taking away the talisman, squats down, begins to conjure something very diligently. Having done her job, hands over the talisman, hands it to Kruta. Rogue, looking skeptically at this whole picture, does not understand the venture of his little sister. Kruta is not concerned about the situation in any way. After all, the girl cannot do anything to her detriment, and gladly accepts her gift. After thinking about it for a bit, Kruta turns to Noah. She wants, upon completion of the task, to give him a treat as a thank you. The hero, on the other hand, is happy to do so and will look forward to it. The girl smiled brightly, reporting her departure. Comrades looked at the trail of the adventurer, hoping that the study will end safely and without incident. Nino knows about Kruta's power. She also believes in good things. Rogue, picking up on their sad thoughts, begins to cheer them up. After all, if they just worry about the others, it won't change anything. So, he suggests that Nino and Noah go on this exploration as well. In the great swamp of Pontunal, the destruction of the monster turtle takes place. The destruction of the turtle was a request of rank B. We need to collect grinding materials from the Lactados at the request of the blacksmith bug. Comrades arrived on a mission. They watched the monster from afar. The turtle looked huge. Also, its other name is the swordsman's cry. Rogue explains why the turtle is called that. Turns out it's a ridiculously large turtle, very hard. Because of this, physical attacks don't work. Plus, the monster has good magical defense. After listening to the guy, the hero tries to find out how they should proceed. The adventurer, still explaining, informs that it is necessary to hit the weak point, and the weak point of the turtle is the neck. Despite this, the neck is still just as strong. So, the guy thinks that the hero's new sword will be perfect for this battle. Noah pulls out his new sword, with determination in his eyes. The sword is made of meteoric iron. This meteoric iron used to be a huge stone that was over 5 meters in size. The sword was obtained after smelting, pressing, and forging the iron. Also, it has 3 features. First, the weapon won't break even if a dragon steps on it. Noah, rushing in and fighting the monster blocking its attacks, notices that the sword doesn't have a single scratch. The second feature of the weapon is sharpness. No matter what strokes the hero makes, it is still just as sharp. He sovereignly can say that this sword is his greatest masterpiece that he is holding in his hands for the first time. Even 2 features are enough for the hero to defeat the monster, which he did. The young man quickly defeated the huge turtle. Noah admires his new sword, its sharpness and durability. Also, Bug said that because of this, the sword is very heavy. But for a young boy, it's just right. In addition, it has another feature. The weapon suits the hero, although it is very expensive. Despite the discount, it cost 10 million gold. Nino notices the hero was able to chop the turtle without breaking its neck. She marvels at his strength. Noah joyfully turned to his companions, showing off his booty. But his happiness did not last long, for the monster was not alone. The 3 of them prepared for the next battle. The turtles began their attack as a group. Rogue notices their numbers, to which Nino explains that the monsters instinctively sense the strength of the enemy. The whole crowd of monsters came thanks to Noah. Surely the monsters must have felt threatened by the group. The hero is stunned. He doesn't understand why the whole group came because of him. Rogue takes out his shield, grinningly agrees with his little sister's words. Even the monsters recognize the strength of a hero. The boy, brushing it off, lays out a plan. He and Nino are going to distract, and he should attack in the meantime. The The girl warns the young man. In this swamp, though rare, there are places where there is no bottom. Also, as it turns out, the Lactatos have a higher ranking one. Before she can finish her words, she notices something. As it turned out, a different kind of Lactatos appeared in front of them. His name was Magmatatos. The comrades were stunned by this sight. Noah, looking at his new opponent, decides to attack him as hard as he can. Taking a step forward, preparing for his attack. His eyes showed complete determination and readiness for battle. Attacking with his cleaving strike, the young man observes the monster and how this strike affected him. Suddenly, the monster's eyes became ferocious. The comrades staggered back from such a thing. It seems that Magmatatos will deliver its blow. As it happened, the monster attacks them with its certain wind. Rogue stood in front of Noah, protecting him with his shield. They realized that the long-range attack had no effect on him. The adventurer, aware of the monster's soft scales, thought it was right to attack from afar. He thought such strength would be enough to overpower it, but it seems he was wrong. The hero decides to attack the monster by approaching it and cut it down. But Rogue was against it, because there is a swamp and who knows when he may fall into it. He explains that Magmatatos is not different from Lactatos in physical strength, but they are distinguished by the steam from the head and the heat of the body, which causes severe burns to those who approach. The hero, listening to the guy, believes that this monster is stronger than Lactatos after all. Putting aside the strong opponent, they decide to finish off the Lactatos. Using Noah and Nino's strength, they easily cut its neck. For now, Rogue protects them with his shield. Finishing off the less powerful opponent, the girl notices how Magmatoidos, unlike Lactatos, has no resistance to magic. In addition, it moves much slower, so attack magic in this case will be effective. Nino thinks that if they had a mage, they would easily deal with it. The girl, turning to her brother, asks for a further plan of action. At this point, the hero remembered the third feature of the sword: magic absorption. This is the greatest feature of the sword because of the peculiarity of the meteorite material. It can absorb and accumulate magic power. The weapon can nullify a magic attack that can't be dodged, but the sword cannot absorb magic indefinitely. It must be released. If the hero doesn't release, the magic will evaporate on its own. Noah realizes if one absorbs the magic power beforehand, it will be possible to release it. These actions are very empowering. The blacksmith asks the hero not to forget about this feature. Also, he thinks that someone who dreams of becoming a magical swordsman, if they use magic and sword, they will end up being only average at both. Noah recalls saying that there are no those who have the talent of a magic swordsman. It seems so, but decides to prove otherwise. Bringing his plan to a conclusion, the young man informs his comrades. To the attack that was before, he will add magic. Adventurers, surprised, is it really possible for him to do this? In Noah's opinion, with his new sword, his plan is possible. This is the first time he will try it, so he doesn't know if he can. But if he can combine dissection with magical power, it should work on Magmatatos. Only, it will take time for the young man to fill up with magic. So, he asks his comrades to buy time. He hopes that he can rely on them. Rogue decides to take on Lactatos, and Nino, since it's not the first time, decides to take on Magmatatos. The girl hopes for the hero to use 2 ranks. And if he fails, she calls Stimulus, tells him she'll stab him with her kunai. The first thing the young man decides to do is to concentrate the magical power in his body. Suddenly, he thinks about something and realizes that at the moment, he is not sending magic into his sword. Reconcentrating, picking up the sword, he prepares for his decision. He is going to turn the magic power inside his body into magic water. After that, we'll redirect the power into the sword. Concentrating, he proceeds to his scheme. In the blink of an eye, ice appears under his feet and under his sword. It seems the hero was able to do what he so desired. At this time, Nino was fighting a Magmatatos. Suddenly, the monster started ignoring the girl's attacks. It was heading somewhere. All attempts to stop it were futile. The adventuress didn't understand what was wrong, but she, without wasting time, still continued her attack. The girl successfully distracts the monster. She had a plan. The monster fell into the hollow. she was able to distract it. Realizing that it was already time to finish him off, Nino calls out to the hero. Noah gathered all his strength together. In his eyes were the full determination of his victory. Finally, he is ready for battle. The young man marches forward to defeat the monster. From a distance, he attacks from long range with his flash. The comrades are surprised by the hero's attack. They watch the battle with admiration. The hero's strike has worked. Finally, the monster is defeated, and the comrades can breathe a sigh of relief. Noah, walking up to his comrades, makes it clear that the task is over. Stepping back from the battle, Nino was amazed at the hero's ability to use the magic sword. She had never doubted Zeke, as he was called. The hero was surprised when the girl addressed him by his name for the first time without teasing. Trying to hide her amazement, Nino falls into a stupor. At this point, Rogue interrupts his sister, stating that he has long respected the hero and she should have done the same. He also notes that they make a good team. The hero smiles at his comrades' pleasant words. Also, the adventurer, looking at all the defeated monsters, is already thinking about what the proceeds will be. Getting a bit off topic, the guy invites the young man to go to the water channel in this one. Nino, looking wryly at his brother, realizes why he constantly has money problems. Because of this, he constantly dilutes the ale with water. Almost reaching the guild, the girl has a question about Noah's promotion. After all, the tasks for promotion should be enough, and he is still with the rank of D. The hero suggests that the next assignment will most likely be his last with his current rank. In addition, the young man learned this from Amelia while he was clarifying the information about the Lactathos. According to the terms of the adventurer's promotion, he must complete several tasks of appropriate difficulty. Then, pass an exam, after which he would receive a rank promotion. Rogue knows that Noah can easily handle the C rank assignment as well. Therefore, he is confident in the hero's abilities and rank advancement. Suddenly, almost reaching the guild, the comrades notice a strange scene. A crowd of people gathered in front of the guild. Suddenly, one of the people starts calling out to the crowd. Turning towards the voice, they see the church sister Lee. She was in utter despair and couldn't utter her words completely. Approaching Lee, Nino tries to calm her down to recognize the situation. The church sister, after taking a deep breath, calms down and begins to recount the incident. It turns out that in the church cemetery again, rebels have appeared. The hero, from hearing the words, gets into a stupor. Lee, continuing her conversation, explains that this is not the only thing that has happened. Also, under the church, a strong sound that was like a rumbling came from the water channels underground. In order to protect the people near the church sister came to make an urgent request to the guild. Nino, listening about the whole situation, remembers about Kruda, starting to worry about her. Suddenly, Noah interrupts the girl, turning to Lee, informs her that they were also heading to the guild. Therefore, offers to go there together. While the comrades were talking, an explosion happened outside the city limits. The church sister, watching this, realizes that there is a church at the site of the explosion. Lee begins to worry even more. The hero gets a bad feeling after the explosion. Sending the church sister to the guild, Noah suggests his companions to go along with him to find out what happened to the church. Especially, they have only come from a mission. Therefore, they should be prepared for battle just in case. The adventurers, without a drop of doubt, agree with the young man. Going to the site of the explosion, they see a horrifying picture. In the middle of the church, a huge hole has appeared, which leads by field to the very bowels of the earth. From this hole, countless rebels crawled out. In addition, there were many miasmas. Noah, stunned by what was happening, immediately asking his comrades to move away. The hero is about to use the shelter. Suddenly, an unknown man appears in front of the team. They stare at him in a stupor, not realizing what will happen next. This strange man looked like a villain. Appearing from the bowels of the earth, his legs were wrapped around a bunch of snakes, which gave him an even more terrifying appearance. Amongst his snakes hovered the unconscious Kruda. Her entire body was charged with a snake, so she couldn't get out. After the incident, the comrades headed to the Adventurers Guild. After arriving there, they went straight to the Guildmaster Abelt. They recounted the entire situation that had happened to them. According to them, Abel realized that an unknown monster had escaped by him grabbing Kruta. The team tried their best to stop it, but it still escaped. Guildmaster is not concerned that they couldn't stop it. The main thing is the comrades were not hurt. The man assumes the monster the team saw. The monster they confronted was the demon earlier in the report that appeared. The team looked at the Guildmaster in surprise. Abel, however, begins to explain who are demons. As it turns out, demons are different from monsters. They have high intelligence, evil, and very strong. If there was a demon's hideout in the dungeon beneath the church, it was likely where he was conducting research on the dead, and the miasmas from the process were spewed to the surface. The Guildmaster suggests that this must have been the reason the undead were rising outside the church so often. After the man's words, the hero realizes the zombie dragon was the guardian of the demon's base. The commander of the Explorer Corps Adventurer Ranka Schlein also was at the time when the demon came out, and he doesn't understand why the demon escaped by taking Kruta hostage. The monster is terrifyingly strong, so they were only able to defend themselves against its attacks. If the demon had wanted to, it would have easily destroyed them. With that in mind, Abel has a hunch. Perhaps Kruta was originally his target. Guildmaster mentioned that they found items similar to tools for the magic of the dead at the demon's base. Due to this, it can be assumed to steal Kruta for experiments with the magic of the dead. But they can't say that for sure because there's a special reason for that. Nino, unable to endure this conversation because of her concern for the adventuress, stands up abruptly, suggesting to put aside idle talk and get down to business. With excitement, the girl recommends as soon as possible to save her. She doesn't understand why everyone is talking so calmly. After all, Kruta is the strongest in the guild, and there's no time to waste. Abel understands the girl's anxiety, but makes it clear that they cannot act right now. Because their enemy is a demon, in addition, a mage of the dead, about which they know almost nothing. If they just attack in large numbers, they will only increase the number of victims. Plus, there's a chance that the victims will turn undead and become their enemies. In order to definitely deal with the demon, Abel has a person with S-rank strength. Rejoicing, the girl offers to call this person immediately. But the Guildmaster disappoints her. They will not be able to do anything, as they have already sent her a request for help. As it turns out, this person has a problem with his relatives, so she can't help right now. Noah, after hearing these words, starts to think about what he should do. But it's dangerous to act rashly right now. Normally, if a request came up, she would have accepted it. The comrades realized that it was about the Sword Saint hero's sister Lisa. Hearing her name, Noah choked up. He didn't expect the speech to be about his sister. Noticing the hero's condition, Abel inquires about his condition, to which he only let him know that everything is fine. But in fact, the young man's mind was a complete mess. The young man still could not believe what was happening. If they are really talking about her, then after all, she is actually an S rank. Nino, unable to bear it all, is going to save Kruta herself. Rogue, trying to stop her sister, tries to explain to her that such an undertaking will only lead to her death. The guild master agrees with the guy's words. After all, first they need to find out where he went. The girl, still in an angry state, informs him that she knows the demon's location. During the battle with him, the girl applied detection magic to Kruta's talisman. The monster was now located in the evil spirit forest in the northwest of Razia. Rogue and Noah were surprised at the girl's resourcefulness. A confused Nino, glad that her ability came in handy. In the blink of an eye, the girl's mood sank. She made it clear that this was not the time to find out about the ability. Nino believes if there is no Kruta, then there is no point for her to be an adventurer either. Therefore, she thinks it's necessary to immediately save her by going there. Realizing how much the girl cares about Kruta, Nino decides to go to that place with her. Especially, the adventuress promised that she would give him a treat. Nino is touched by the young man's words. At the same time, Rogue, scratching his head, thinks, this time this battle will definitely not take out this battle. Stopping Noah, Abel tries to tell him something. But the hero interrupts him and gives him his dagger. If the guildmaster shows this knife with the family crest, the holy sword Lisa will definitely come running. The man took the knife in his hands and was momentarily surprised. The hero's smile was like a ray of light in the darkness of doubt. Abel took one look at him and could not realize who stood before him. However, when the man came to his senses, he gave his word of the favorable outcome of the battle. Suddenly, as a sign of extreme trust, he authorized them to go to destroy the demon to save Kruda. However, the condition was strict. If the team realized that the task was impossible, they would have to go back. The comrades unanimously agreed to the guildmaster's decision. The team reached the evil spirit forest. Upon reaching the place, Noah begins to reflect on his actions. He never thought that he would give his location himself. Most likely, as soon as Lisa sees this blade, she will immediately fly to this place. After all, the blade his sister gave him was specially made for the young man. A memorable short blade that meant many things. The journey from their homeland of Winster will surely take several days. The hero realizes, though all his actions were to convince the guildmaster, he is going to finish everything in a couple of days. The young man begins to wonder what will happen if his sister arrives. He realizes that he will have to part ways with his comrades. Interrupting the character's thoughts, Nino thanks him for his help yesterday. She is going to thank him somehow for the knife. Waving away and giving a sign of not needing thanks, the young man asks to thank Rogue. After all, he wasn't obligated to go with them, but he decided to nonetheless. The lad, however, seeing nothing wrong with it, makes it clear that it is his responsibility to protect his little sister. Nino, Riley, makes it clear that his protection is only because of their damn connection. Still going the way of the demon, Rogue thinks his sister at least owes him some thanks. Also, the guy recalls how he told her about the basics of being an adventurer. Since their enemy, the demon controls the dead. Before departing, the church sister handed them a high-grade holy water, hoping for its usefulness. This holy water, created through the saint's prayer, is extremely effective against the not dead. Leah tried hard, for the sake of such a precious item. Noah didn't even know that high-grade holy water was so expensive. After all, his sister fam was creating it quite easily. Still walking down the unknown road, Rogue tries to ask Nino if they are going in the right direction. Looking at her map, the girl sees that the search map shows a mansion deep in the forest. And if her map is to be believed, they only have one road. She reassures her brother, as they shouldn't get lost. But the guy, on the other hand, believes that they are not the slightest bit closer to the place. Suddenly, the adventurer wonders if this is a trap. But the girl is firmly confident in her abilities, especially she has checked the area with the help of Hagen. Therefore, their walking in circles is something else and not an illusion. Nino used the Eye of Illusion Neutralization, a ninjutsu that allows her to see illusions and traps. Even though the girl checked for traps, the situation didn't change in any way. They still couldn't get any closer to the place. Suddenly, no one noticed something strange. Taking out his sword and getting into a protective stance, informs his comrades. In an instant, the trees seemed to come alive. The branches of the plants became like vines. One of the trees grabbed the adventurer. She screamed in surprise and fright. As it turned out, it was a plant monster Trent. The comrades immediately realized why they couldn't get out thanks to these monsters. The Trents were changing the forest and confusing them. And because it wasn't an illusion, Nino couldn't detect it. At this time, the girl was hanging on the monster's vines, complaining about how she was constantly being suspended. But this time, she was able to get out on her own. Rogue, noticing the way she got out, asks her to stand behind her. After figuring it out, they decide to proceed to break through before the monsters change territory again. Putting his shield in front of him, the adventurer runs through while behind him. Nino and Noah attack the monsters and run in the guy's wake. Finally, they were able to get out of this vicious circle. A view of the demon's lair opened up in front of them. They gingerly looked at this castle. Once out of the forest, the Andella watchdogs immediately pop up in front of the team. Watching the monsters, the heroes prepare for battle, noticing their abomination and passing. Now, noticing the appearance of the dogs, realizes that their demon master must also come out in the wake. Before he can finish his thoughts, someone stands in front of them. As it turns out, it was the palace people. It seems that they want to hinder the team no matter what it costs them. Watching all this, Nino sees from afar as the tree monsters were advancing towards them. After drinking the holy water given by the church sister, Rogue and Nino intend to take on the enemies and dispatch the enemies and send Noah straight to the castle. They realize the monsters are likely to overpower and overpower. Therefore, adventurers should not deal with them one at a time. After all, afterward, there will be no end to them. Noah opposes the decision of his comrades. He doesn't intend to leave them for nothing. The girl, he makes it clear to him that if the hero can dispose of the necromancer, then the rest of the enemies will also stop moving. If they are stuck in this place, they will not be able to help. Seeing as the monsters begin to move out, the adventuress asks the young man not to hesitate before it's too late. After hearing her words, the young man agrees, but asks not to exhaust himself to the extreme. Attacking from a distance, Noah clears his way into the castle. He runs like lightning through the cleared path. At that time, Rogue and Nino were already ready to show their strength and test the top-grade holy water. After reaching the center of the evil spirit forest, the hero sees an old estate. Without wasting a second, because the lives of his comrades are at stake, he pushes through the gates of the manor with his feet. Upon entering the place, the young man is greeted by a certain voice. The voice did not startle Noah, he was focused. A demon stepped out in front of the hero. In his face read indifference. Unable to bear it, Noah tries to find out Kruta's whereabouts. The demon, still with the same calm face, asks the hero to calm down, showing the girl. Seeing his acquaintance, the young man stands in a stupor. In a flash, his eyes began to show fear, worry, and shock. What will Noah do this time? Kruta was wrapped around snakes. Her legs couldn't be seen because of them. Also, her face was changed. She no longer looked like the real Kruta. She holds her sword in her hands, slowly aiming for the hero. Stepping back a bit from her state, Noah asks the demon what he did to her. Still just as calm, the monster explains how he used the girl as an experiment in the magic of the dead. He placed a large amount of spirits of the dead inside her while she was still alive. At this time, Kruta tries to say something, but her speech was too quiet and incomprehensible. Noah doesn't understand what the demon is getting at. The monster's experiment was successful. Now, with the help of her strong emotions, the experiment that was talked about as impossible, the monster realized into reality. Kruta's current state, while remaining alive, she was like the undead. By gagging the girl with snakes, the demon shows his gratitude to her. After all, her hatred for the demon, the murderer of her relatives and family vows revenge. This is enough for him and to support the possession of spirits. The girl had a strong hatred and fighting ability. Because of this, the demon was able to complete his experiment. The monster credits the success of everything to Kruta. Enraged Noah clutches his sword in his hands, pointing it towards the villain. From these actions, the enemy becomes amused, and he begins to laugh. From which the young man begins to laugh even harder. After all, the girl herself pursued him to take revenge, but lost. The demon remembers her facial expression during her transformation into an undead. Her broken and desperate face seemed admirable to the monster. From his words, the hero's veins begin to boil with anger. He couldn't wait for the moment to destroy it. In addition, he realizes that you cannot just let him go. Therefore, he begins to attack. But the hero's strike is blocked by the girl with her sword. Right now, she has the power of countless spirits of the dead, which the demon collected hundreds of years. The villain makes it clear that even the young man who defeated the zombie dragon is no equal, his new weapon. At that moment, the girl like lightning was next to the hero. He is amazed at this speed, but can he withstand it? She begins to attack him with great speed. In her eyes read complete indifference to him. Despite the futility of his attacks, Noah manages to block his opponent's blows. Suddenly, pushing away from her, he begins to use magic. After using Blanche, realizes that all his actions are useless. He sees how the magic of the Blanche cannot banish the spirits. All the while watching the battle, the demon marvels at how the swordsman is able to use magic to banish spirits. Also, the villain adds, if that's all he can do, then banishing all spirits will be impossible. Distancing himself from his adversaries, Noah panics. He doesn't know. what to do and decides to think of something to banish the spirits with. Heading out with his new weapon, the demon forces him to accept his helplessness. He tries to insinuate that in such a situation, there is no way the young man can help his comrade without using the magic of light purification Lusle. Suddenly, something comes into Noah's mind. He seems to know what he should do. He, squatting down, tries to use the magic that the villain mentioned before. Even among the spells of the great saint, the hero's older sister fam is one of the highest. This magic temporarily places a spirit of light into one's own body, thereby purifying everything. Still standing on his posture, Noah will concentrate as much as possible. After cleansing his thoughts and soul, he summons the Lusle. The young man seems to have succeeded.